from the increased prosperity of the country. And they began to grumble. They began to grumble about many things, the shortages of food, the high prices, and the graft and corruption which accompanied many of the new programs. The Communist Party had, from its inception, been almost puritanical in its morality, insisting on its leaders not profiting from the activities or their position in office. Now, the stories went around and around and spread across the country of leaders who were in on deals with foreign companies, either directly or through surrogates, through relatives, and particularly through sons and daughters who were profiting from the new prosperity from which many of the people were getting no results.
The former General Secretary, Hu Yaobang, was thought to be sympathetic to the students' modernization movement. His sudden death on April 15, 1989, triggered an explosion of popular discontent. The demonstrations, staged mainly by students, escalated into the Tiananmen incident of June 4th.
Tiananmen is almost a symbol of China, and what happens there has profound results. The Tiananmen incident of June 1989 reminds me of the first one in recent times, which was in 1976. It occurred after the death of Zhou Enlai. The people streamed into the square to demonstrate their loyalty and their feeling for Zhou, and indeed their antagonism for the Gang of Four and Mao Zedong. The victim of that turned out to be Deng Xiaoping. He lost his job and went into exile. The second Tiananmen incident, again, people pouring into the square, the students and then the population, protesting what? Protesting Deng Xiaoping and his regime and various elements in it. Deng Xiaoping did not lose his position as a result of the second Tiananmen, but it caused one of the greatest crises which the People's Republic has had since its foundation. New contradictions suddenly began to appear. It was not as clear sailing as it had been. There were contrasts and conflicts within the party. There were men who thought he was going too fast. There were those who felt that he was taking the wrong course. There were those who felt that he had the wrong men in charge. And a power struggle emerged between what were called the elderly group, or the conservatives, and the younger group, those who adhered to Zhao Ziyang and various people like that and wanted to go forward. And before you knew it, this clash became so difficult, so tight, so strong that it burst forth into actual physical conflict. These were the things which lay behind the Tiananmen incident. It was a culmination of forces which Deng Xiaoping had set into motion himself and which he began to lose control of.
The Chinese government announced officially that the June 4th incident was an anti-revolutionary uprising, a plot by a small number who used the students' movement to try to overthrow party leadership.
I think that Deng Xiaoping regarded Tiananmen as a direct challenge not only to his personal authority, but to the policies for which he stood, and indeed to the regime and to the whole authority of the Communist Party. It was not only the demonstration in Beijing which brought him to that conclusion, it was the fact that throughout the country there was a growing attitude on the part of the party to ignore directives from the center, and indeed the people were ignoring the directives from the county and the city as well. In other words, the party authority was weakening. And I think he finally was convinced that only by an act of very great strength, an act, if you will, of terror, of force, was it possible to reconstitute his regime, the authority of it, his personal authority, and the authority of the Communist Party.
After the Tiananmen incident, various movements were launched to promote love of country and party. At this concert for the soldiers of the People's Liberation Army, many old songs composed 40 years ago in the days of the founding of the People's Republic were performed. The aim was to enhance people's trust in the party and arouse patriotism with songs proclaiming, "Without the Communist Party, the new China would not have been born," or "When the Communist Party came, our agony changed to happiness." Workers study Deng Xiaoping's teachings in their workplace. The purpose of such meetings is not only to study party and government doctrine. Every participant is required to explain what he was doing on June 4th and his thoughts about the so-called uprising.
邓小平同志精辟地阐述了当前我们社会上面出现的动乱的性质，同时给我们指明了他们动乱为要达到的目的。
因为这次暴乱发生的这个起因呢，就跟好多国外的宣传机构的宣传有关系，所以希望他们在今后啊，在这方面能够公正客观地进行报道。
通过我讲，觉得这个还是应该讲根据这个邓小平同志讲闲话啊，这个一个精神啊，来思想的提高一步，使得以后今后阿拉工作的更加好，为国家啊多做贡献，使得讲阿拉这个国家。
The political study meetings were conducted in every workplace and school throughout the autumn of 1989.
The great achievement of Deng Xiaoping was to bring to an end the contradictions, the intrigues, the clashes which had marked the last years of Mao Zedong. Once Deng Xiaoping became in charge of China, he went straight forward with a program for renewal, a program for development of industry, pushing China ahead, pushing her ahead faster than she had been for centuries. And it began to be apparent that he possibly could make his goals of bringing China into the ranks of the middle European powers by the middle of the 21st century. But then, just as that goal began to become in sight, clashes broke out. With social and economic problems facing the country and unrest rising, the makings of a real crisis seemed at hand. It was this, of course, which led to the bloody repressions of Tiananmen. Just one more way of sweeping away problems rather than confronting them and honestly attempting to resolve them. It was, I must confess,